And I said, quite the contrary, because this person is a karate student, I think that you can also plausibly argue that they know how to control their temper, that they can measure their opponent, that they know when to walk away from a fight. And when I made that argument, I think a lot of the students were very surprised. And after class, they looked at me and they said, "Where did you get that from?" And I told them, I said, "Well, I study karate." And I think they were very surprised because I was always very quiet,
Right.
laid back, the total antithesis of the typical perception that you have of a karate student as being an aggressive individual.
Welcome to Finding Budo. Today on the podcast, I sit down and talk with 5th degree Uechi-Ryu Karate black belt and retired federal judge Jose Sanchez. Jose began his martial arts practice in 1983, starting in Seido Karate in New York City, later moving to Massachusetts and beginning his Uechi-Ryu Karate training. He received his Shodan in 1988 and is testing for his 6th degree master's rank later this year. He also cross-trains in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. During our interview, Jose talks about how his martial arts training has kept his body healthy and active over the years. We also discuss his varied professions as a judge, an air traffic controller, and a criminal defense lawyer, and how the martial arts have aided him keeping composed during high stress and high stakes situations. I find every conversation I have with Jose to be engaging and intriguing, and I know you will too. Please enjoy Jose Sanchez. Jose, thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Well, I think to get started, could you tell us how you began your martial arts training?
Well, I think like everything, there's a little serendipity involved because I was an air traffic controller in New York at the time. And one of my friends was studying karate at a school in Manhattan, Seido Karate. And he told me about it and he said it's really great and it's a great stress relief, good exercise. And I said, well, let me try it. And I went with him one day to class and we worked out together and I enjoyed it quite a bit. It was a Japanese style, but I discovered that there were a lot of other benefits other than just the so-called workout or the physical activity. They also would have their students do Zen Buddhist meditation. And of course, at the time I was 27 years old, I said, what is that? And I said, well, let me try it. And what this sensei would do is at the end of class, twice a week, he would take all of his students and he would have them sit and squat in the perimeter of the dojo, turn off the lights. He would have some nice scents in the dojo, and he would ask everybody to close their eyes and concentrate on their breathing. Now, of course, without any real training, it was very hard for me to do that. I said, what do you mean close your eyes and concentrate on your breathing? My mind was drifting. And that's exactly what he wanted you to try to control, is put everything else aside. What I now know and we know as Mushin, the sort of empty mind, and just concentrate on your breathing, on your body, and try to put everything else aside. And naturally, the first few times it was very difficult. I would sit there squatting, hands on my lap, and every once in a while I would open up an eye and I would peek around. And the sensei was so good, he would catch you and he would go, "Hi!" Close your eyes and focus. And I did that for about a year. And I have to admit, it was great training for this experience now. After that, I eventually moved up to Boston, and that's where I discovered Uechi-Ryu with Sensei Ron Labrie when he opened his school in Gloucester. 1983, I think, was the year that I started, just before law school.
Do you feel like the training at the time and the meditation helped you with the air traffic controlling?
Absolutely, because it gave me that equanimity to be able to just pause and concentrate and focus intensely on what you're doing. As you can imagine, in air traffic control, there's no margin for error.
It's a high stress job.
It's a high stress job, and managing that stress is critical to being successful. If you can't handle the stress, you're going to be overwhelmed easily. And if you're overwhelmed easily, you could cause an accident. You're not going to be able to manage the flow of air traffic in an airport expeditiously, making sure that everybody is safe. So I found it incredibly beneficial. not only just to handle the stress on your body, but the stress on your mind as well, which is, I think, what we all strive to do at some point.
That is the goal. How was the transition between, you said Seido Karate to Uechi-Ryu?
I enjoyed the transition because I found that Uechi-Ryu Karate gave me the opportunity to focus on the entire body, the mind, and the spirit. The style in New York, it was great, and I enjoyed it, and it was a great introduction, but it was focused mostly on the physical aspect of karate, which I think is what everybody sort of thinks of it, at first when they join a karate school. I want to learn how to fight, and that's really not what it's about. So when I came to Uechi, Ron was just such a great instructor. He gave us that balance, and he gave us all an opportunity to grow at our own pace. And it was a brand new school. So we were mostly white belts, a couple of green belts. Of course, we also had the benefit of having Freddie Sesersha there. And I think he was already a first-degree black belt by then. So he was helping Ronnie get the school started. And what I enjoyed the most is that Ronnie's dojo was really a dance studio. And he rented it 3 nights a week. So when we would go in for our classes 3 nights a week, the floor was filthy. And we would all grab towels, line up on one side of the dojo, go down and clean the floor all the way.
Old school.
Old school, exactly. And then after the floor was nice and clean, then we would start our classes. And he had that dojo probably for about a year until he was able to open up his own dedicated dojo across the street. I think it was in Brown's Mall in Gloucester. And I stayed with him for about 4 or 5 years. Now, the great part about Ronnie is that I had started law school right after I started studying with him. And as you can imagine, law school is 7 a.m. to 8 at night. And I had 3 kids at the time, and I had to work whenever I could. And I had to concentrate on rent and food and gas for the car and everything else. And I remember going up to him one day and said, I'm going to have to quit. And he asked me why. And I said, I can't do it. I have to dedicate my income to supporting the family. And I will never forget this. He said, you keep coming to classes and you pay me whatever you can, whenever you can. So naturally, whenever I had some free time, I'd run to the dojo, sneak in a class, and whenever I had some money, I would pay him and catch up with my monthly dues. But I've never forgotten that, because if it hadn't been for that, I might have just quit and stopped altogether and focused on my legal career. But because of that very generous offer, I was able to continue both activities. And that was 42 years ago, something like that.
Gave you that chance to keep going.
Exactly. I'm not counting the years at this point.
So you're going to law school, you're supporting a family, and you're training. Did the training help you find that balance when you could get to class?
Absolutely, because law school also is very stressful.
Right.
And the exams are very intense, and you have to, sometimes in class, the professors would call on you. They'd give you a principle of law, and they'd look around, and they would go, Mr. Sanchez, stand up. And you'd have to stand up in class in front of 90 or 100 other students and espouse a legal doctrine, which you were just barely familiar with. So that sort of stress can be overwhelming. But again, because of karate, it helped me a great deal. I think it also helped me in terms of my analysis in the law, because I remember a professor gave us an example, and one of the students stood up and said, well, the defendant in this case is a karate student. He studies karate. And I think you can make a plausible argument that he is prone to violence, that he can't control his temper, and that is his training. So therefore, he could very well be guilty of the assault and battery. And I'm in the back of the classroom, and I'm listening very carefully. And I was a very quiet law student. I was not one of those that was always raising his hand. But because of my training, I raised my hand. The professor was very surprised, because I was not normally engaged. And I said, quite the contrary, because this person is a karate student, I think that you can also plausibly argue that they know how to control their temper, that they can measure their opponent, that they know when to walk away from a fight, that they know that if they do engage in a fight, that they can walk away, that they can control their temper, control their physical response to any sort of aggression, and learn how to walk away, and know that there are degrees. You can stop rather than maim, and maim rather than hurt, hurt rather than kill or deal a deadly blow. And when I made that argument, I think a lot of the students were very surprised. And after class, they looked at me and they said, "Where did you get that from?" And I told them, I said, "Well, I study karate." And I think they were very surprised because I was always very quiet,
Right.
laid back, the total antithesis of the typical perception that you have of a karate student as being an aggressive individual.
Most of the ones I know are not such.
Exactly. But I think a lot of people who don't study the martial arts have that false impression.
That's pretty cool. And it gave you, if you ever had to have a client like that, it gives you some empathy with them.
Well, it does, exactly. It does.
And I think one of the things that we gain from training is that empathy, ability to empathize with other people, ideally, because we get to train with so many different types of people on the dojo floor, it's kind of hard not to.
And measuring your partner and their skill and their ability and learning when to kick it up a notch. You know, I certainly do that when I'm working out with certain people in the dojo. You know that you can go all out. And then there are others who are still in the early phases of their training, and what you want to do is you want to help them elevate their skill set. So you give them just enough to match their skill set, and if they're ready, then you raise it just a little bit to help them get to that next level. I enjoy that the most, and when you work with people for a number of years, you get to see that growth, and it's great that even someone like me, we're able to contribute just a little bit to that growth.
So how has your martial arts training evolved over the years?
Well, it's evolved because I think it's given me, as we just discussed about, empathy and knowing, especially as a judge on the bench, because after my legal career, I practiced criminal defense for 8 years. I was appointed to the bench in Lawrence, a community that has its issues, drugs, violence, gangs. And I think it's helped me in terms of understanding what's going on in the community and not being judgmental. I grew up in Spanish Harlem, so I've been through that sort of an environment. And I know that sometimes if you don't have the right family support, upbringing, it's very easy to get sucked into the sort of activities that our parents always told us avoid at all costs. And I often used to tell young people, young adults that would come before me in court, we all make mistakes in life. I've made mistakes. The issue is how we recover, what we learn from that mistake. Studying karate is no different, right? We practice, we make mistakes in our training, and then we recover. People like you and Sensei Durkin and others, they help guide us in the right direction to learn how to get better. And I think somebody who's in court in front of me as a judge has made a mistake. And if anything, the best way that I can help them is to help them get better, to recover from that mistake. And a lot of that comes from the karate training. It gives you that peace of mind and the ability to listen and watch, as opposed to arrive at a snap judgment.
So it sounds like the karate has really aided you in your professional career.
Absolutely. I use it. People ask me, "Oh, have you ever used your karate?" And I think that's sort of a standard, ask by
Right.
people.
Have you ever
And
broken a board before?
exactly. And my standard response is I use it every day. And that's because, again, as Sensei Durkin says, take your karate with you wherever you go. And I do that as much as I possibly can. I try to make sure that whatever I do, it is grounded in the training and the discipline that I've received over the years. And also confronting, I think, your own fears.
Oh, for sure.
I think we all have fears one way or another. I'll give you an example. About 8 years ago, I had to undergo a knee replacement. And for years in karate, I would just sort of work through it, and the next day my knee would hurt and it'd be swollen, and I'd have trouble climbing the stairs at home. And my orthopedic surgeon at first would give me Synvisc shots, which is an artificial cartilage that they inject in order to avoid the bone on bone. And that worked very well for a number of years. And after a while, it lost its efficiency. Then it was cortisone shots, and after a while, that lost its efficiency. And he finally says to me, Jose, I think it's time. You're going to have to undergo the knee replacement. And 2 weeks before the surgery, I walked into his office. This guy's known me for like 20 years, 25 years. And he walks in and he says, what's wrong? And I said, I'm afraid. Because it's serious surgery. They cut the bone, and it's basically a 1-year rehab period. And he said, he had an intern with him. And he turned to the intern and he said, this is what we were talking about this morning. Treat the patient, not the injury. And he says, what are you afraid about? I've explained the whole process to you. And I said, I realize that intellectually. I go, but I'm afraid of, will I have a limp? Will one leg be shorter than the, all of these irrational fears. Is one leg going to be shorter than the other? Will I be able to continue my karate training? And he just listened to me very patiently, and he said, the answer to all of those questions is, you will not have a limp, one leg will not be shorter, and you will be able to continue your karate training. And he helped me sort of work through that fear. And then a week after the surgery, when I did the follow-up, I go into his office. He says, walk up and down the hallway. And I walked up and down. He said, that's pretty good for 1 week. But of course, I used to do my physical therapy 3 times a day. And then I asked the inevitable question, can I go back to karate? And he just laughed. He says, I knew that question was coming. He says, you can go back to karate, no hitting, no sparring, no contact. I want you to get your range of motion, keep the muscle tone, work through the katas, but don't risk an injury.
Right. I remember you recovering from that.
Yeah, and I would come to class, and when we worked together, I would tell people, don't kick my left leg. And of course they would say, oh, I can kick your left leg? And I go, no, you can't.
Typical Uechi students.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And I did that for about 9 months. And then finally, I felt comfortable enough to re-engage in full contact. And it was just great. My knee has never hurt again.
It's amazing.
That was 8 years ago, and I can kick, I can take kicks, I can jump, I can land on it, and it's just great. But again, it's karate, I think, that has helped me confront that fear and articulate it. Because if you don't articulate it, it just eats at you.
It's a hard thing, I think, for people to do, is to express what they're afraid of.
Yes.
We want to internalize it.
Yes.
We're afraid of someone shaming us for it.
Exactly. Or it's not, quote unquote, manly to confront your fears.
Got to be masculine. Keep it in.
That's a myth. That's just not productive at all.
No, it's not.
No.
So, one of the purposes of this podcast is, besides learning about fellow martial arts students, is kind of see how everyone defines their path in the martial arts. Hence the title, Finding Budo. So I'm curious to you, what do you define as Budo or the martial way?
To me, the martial way is to understand and accept the strengths that you can build, whether it's developing your mind and your spirit. The body, yes, but we could make our body stronger by going to the gym or running 5 miles a day, but I don't see us getting the same benefit from that as we do in the martial arts. To me, it's about the mind, the body, and the spirit. And that's what I think I've enjoyed the most. And as we discussed earlier, I've used it in law school. I've used it on the bench. I've used it in karate. The great part about karate is that when I walk into the dojo, I can put family behind, work behind, and I can focus on the next hour and a half of training. But when I walk into court, I do the same thing.
Right.
I put everything else aside, actually, except the karate. I do take that into court with me because I think that's what gives me that sort of peace of mind and the empathy and the equanimity in order to be able to understand the situation of the person in front of me. I want that person to feel like they have a voice and that I'm listening to them and that I want to try to help in any way that I can, whether it's a defendant or a victim. Because the victims want to be heard also, and they want to feel as if though the court is sensitive to their pain, their hurt, whatever it is that they've gone through as well. So to me, that's a large part of that training.
For sure. And do you feel that it's given you confidence to do that?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. That's where I think a lot of that energy and the confidence comes from, knowing that I can do that, knowing that I've been trained to have that sort of empathy and the ability to listen, and the knowledge that I can help.
Right.
I mean, the more you give, I think the more you get back in the long run. And whether it's in court, whether it's in the dojo, in life with your children, I think the more you give, the more you get back. And all of my children are now grown.
Right.
And I think I've been able to see that firsthand. Everything that I've given them during their formative years, now they're giving back to me in their own way. Even the simplest of things, calling me back. Dad, how you doing? Where are you going this weekend? Are you going up to the lake? Okay, great. Need anything? No, I'm fine. But they ask. They have that same sort of empathy and the same sort of caring behaviors that I would like to think I had some part in that development.
I'm sure you did. With the career you've had, being on the bench, being a lawyer, have you ever felt physically threatened by anyone?
I have.
Yeah.
Very much. Actually, a couple of times. But again, I've been able to diffuse those situations without violence, without
Right.
confrontation. Knowing when to walk away, I think, is the most critical skill that you could ever develop, as opposed to if you're driving, down a road and somebody sticks the finger at you, what do you do? Right, you walk away from that. That's not threatening. If somebody insults you verbally, you don't need to engage in a physical fight or altercation because of that. You just say fine and you walk away. But then again, we all know there's the line.
Right.
If somebody comes up to you and they threaten you physically, now you go into self-defense mode. And even though I've been in situations where I've been threatened, I've always been able to walk away from it and diffuse it somehow. Or take blame and say, I'm sorry, no problem.
Taking blame is powerful, even if you know it wasn't your fault.
Exactly.
I've been very lucky. I have not led a life that has got me close to any really big physical confrontations outside of like teenage boys being
No, exactly.
foolish. But I've definitely been able to diffuse situations by apologizing, even if I wasn't sure if I was the one at fault.
And we realize the consequences of engaging in physical, aggression towards somebody else. I've seen it many times in court. Somebody will insult you, they'll spit at you, and next thing you know, you're in a fight and you're smashing somebody's head on the concrete, and now you're charged with assault and battery by means of a dangerous weapon, which is a felony. You could be charged with mayhem if they're scarred in any way because of that aggression. The consequences are severe.
For sure.
And I think people just don't understand what the repercussions are of engaging in that conduct. It's very easy to say, I'm going to hit them.
Right.
But the consequences can be life-altering.
And how quickly it can go from 0 to 100.
Exactly.
It's funny, you mentioned Mushin earlier, and everything you're saying, like someone calling you a name or bad-mouthing you or insulting you, I'm just like, that's just Mushin. Like, it doesn't have any effect on you
It doesn't.
whatsoever.
It doesn't.
And going back to feeling masculine, which I don't consider myself the most masculine person, but like, I don't care if someone insults my masculinity, just let it go.
I don't either. I've given all of that up. It's just not, it's not worth it. I have other priorities in my life, which is my own growth. Despite the number of years that I've been studying, despite my professional accomplishments and everything else, I still have a lot of growing to do. It never really stops. And I think if you realize that there's always something to learn. And it doesn't matter whether the person next to you is older or younger or less experienced or less educated. I think there's always something to learn from the people around you.
I agree. I learned so much just teaching,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
both about staying calm, but also about the martial arts. Speaking of growth, you're testing for your 6'3" black belt.
I am.
How does that accomplishment feel?
You know, it feels great, but it feels great in the sense that it reinforces my growth, the fact that I've stuck with it. The number is not important to me. The title is not important. What's important is that I've been able to stick with it all of these years, and that I hopefully have gotten progressively better despite the number of years that I've been studying.
Right.
And that's what I mentioned earlier. There's always an opportunity for growth. So I see this as just another rung in the ladder of my own physical, mental, and spiritual growth. That's the takeaway for me. It's not the number. People ask me, what degree black belt are you? And I go, look, I'm just a white belt that, never gave up. I stuck with it. That's all.
It's a confusing saying for someone who doesn't actually train.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel the same way. For me, I mean, the rank at this point is more for my students so that they can
Right.
go through the promotion.
Exactly.
I'm going to hopefully still be on the floor making my own improvements
Sure.
despite
Sure.
whatever rank it might be.
And when you're first starting out, I think younger students need that.
For sure.
Because they see their improvement in terms of the color of their belt or the rank.
Right.
Whereas we see the improvement in our skill set,
Right.
which is much more important.
It's very hard for a new student to even acknowledge or see some of the jumps they're making with improvement in technique or memorization.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Sometimes they need to hear it from us. And I take advantage of that opportunity as well. And I'll tell younger students, I go, that was a great kata. And I go, your punches are so much stronger and better. And when they throw a punch and they do it incorrectly, I'll tell them, take advantage of the opportunity to work with me and hit me. Because part of the training is not just knowing how to defend yourself, but also knowing how to punch, how to make contact. And I go, when you work with somebody like me or the advanced black belts, take advantage of that opportunity to make a little contact. Because you can't expect to be in conflict and get hit and go, oh, wait a minute. It doesn't work that way. You have to barrel through it, so to speak.
I'm thinking about myself as a teenage white belt. I don't remember who was teaching my class. Maybe it was Doug Jack, maybe it was someone else, and doing kumite. And you're throwing your punches at someone, and they're going way off the side of their body.
Exactly.
Just being trained to aim for someone
Sure,
against all your
sure,
instinct.
sure.
It's nuts.
And what do we do now when that happens, right? We don't move.
Right.
And we just wait, and we watch the punch go off to the side, and you go like, what was that?
Now, if anything's going to insult me, it's you're not trying to punch me.
Exactly. And I'll tell them, I go, if you hit me, it's my fault, because I'm supposed to block it. So you have to take advantage of that opportunity.
Right.
Sensei Neil Stone is fantastic at that. You spar with him, and like you, because you and I have sparred, but what I enjoy the most is sort of the economy of motion. It's just sort of waiting and responding to the attack, and then gently deflecting a punch, and then going in for the counterattack. There's a lot to be said for that.
For sure.
And I'm still working at that.
Me too. That's one of the reasons I like sparring is you deal with stress.
Yes.
And you can tell how stressed you are depending on who you're working with, of how much your body's
Yes.
flinching and overreacting.
No.
When you're in the zone, it feels good. When you're not,
It does. And on the bench, going back to my career as a judge, I've been stressed on the bench. You get lawyers or litigants that, they disapprove of your decision. They don't like what you're saying. They don't like the direction you're going in. And they try to push your buttons, so to speak. And I learned early on, and this was advice that I'd gotten from judges that were on the bench for many, many years. They said, when you feel that way, when you feel that you're going to lose control, we're going to take a 5-minute recess. You go into chambers, do a few breathing exercises, and then when you've got your composure back, then you go back out. Very, very effective.
Very powerful.
It also diffuses the animosity in the courtroom.
Right.
Because you don't feed off of each other. It gives them a chance to back off, calm down, and it gives you a chance to recover as well.
I'm glad to know that the techniques I have been using with my 2.5-year-old are very effective with you in the courtroom.
There you go. It works wonders.
Hopefully not similar mindsets all the time.
No. I've had court officers that tease me, and they would say, if anything happens in the courtroom, and if there's, an outburst or anything like that, we're all going behind you. And I go, it doesn't work that way. You're here to protect me. So you can't go behind me and say, he's a black belt, go for it. They tease me incredibly in the courtroom.
It's good to have that relationship.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the cross training you've done. So you started with
Yes.
Seido Karate. You've been doing Uechi-Ryu Karate since
83.
Okay. And you also train BJJ.
I do. I started that about 1.5 years ago. I think it would be a myth to say that I'm a student because I don't go enough. But I do go, once in a while. Sometimes I'll do 2 or 3 classes in a week. And the balance of that is so beneficial. You work different muscle sets. You learn different skills. So I enjoy it. To me, it's a compliment to my Uechi training.
Right.
I used to run 5 miles a day up until the knee started to act up. And I used to run road races in New York. I would do a 10K every weekend. So I would go to the gym. I would run. I still go to the gym, and I lift weights. My doctor has said he doesn't want me running on concrete anymore. He says if you're going to run, do it at the track at the high school where it's nice and soft, or do it on the treadmill where you can control it, and it's not as hard on the knees. But I still do that. And naturally, I watch my diet. I try to make sure that I don't always eat as well as I should, but I try to do it as often as I can. Try to do my own cooking, which I think is a big plus. Eating out can be devastating.
Yes.
And to cook at home, you can control your intake, you can control what you eat, when you eat, how you prepare it.
What ingredients? Huge.
And the ingredients. I'm having a ball with seasonings the past few years. I'm learning it makes such a big difference.
Yes, yes, it does. That's can be tough. Modern restaurants, sugar, fat.
Yeah.
You want to see some fat you want, but you don't realize what's in it.
Exactly. But even when you go to a restaurant, you can still look at the menu and scrutinize carefully what it is that you're consuming, and try to stick as much as you can to the healthier options. So with the running and the gym and the jiu-jitsu and the karate, I feel that I've got a good balance in terms of where I'm going with the rest of my years.
Right.
One of the students talked to me the other day, and he says, I was looking at your bio on the Uechi-Kan page. He says, I didn't realize your age. He thought I was like 10 or 15 years younger. And I said, well, thank you very much. And he said, well, that's because, you don't look it, you don't act it. So I'm very proud of that. It takes a lot to be able to take care of your body to the point where people can't really detect your age by looking at you.
For those who don't know you listening, how old are you now?
I'm 74. I'll be 75 in November.
And you look much younger. And you're active pretty much every day?
Every day. Every single day.
That's huge.
And I have a lake house, and I try to get up. When I'm up there, I'll try to get up at 6, 6 or 7 in the morning. I go down to the dock, and I just jump in, swim around a little bit. My kids disapprove of that tremendously because I'm alone.
Right.
And so they say, you shouldn't be swimming in the lake alone. And I go, you know what? I can get my workout. I know how to swim. I'm comfortable. So I want to take advantage of that.
There's also something to be said about just living life.
Well, exactly. And it's nice and serene, and I watch the eagles flying ahead. So it's a good place to be in life.
Do you have any advice for anyone, whether they're a younger student getting into training or someone who's a little older? Any advice for them about starting the martial arts?
Just go to a dojo and sign up. Give it a try. I had a friend, I stopped training in Uechi-Ryu Karate for about 17 years when I was in law school and when I was first appointed to the bench, again, because it was so intense. And a friend of mine told me, I think that my son would benefit from a karate school. And of course, I knew Buzz's dojo from years ago, and I said, there's only one place to go. I said, and I'll go up with you. So I came up, Buzz saw me in the parking lot, gave me a big hug, said it's been years. And I went inside, and my friend's son was in the class, and I'm sitting in the back, and I'll be very honest with you, I was drooling, and I said, why did I ever stop? And I jumped back in, and even after, it was about 15 years that I had been out. Even after 15 years, it all came back, the muscle memory. And that was probably 13 years ago, and I haven't stopped since. And I would suggest whether you're 5 years old, like my friend's son, or even if you're 60 or 65, just start. And in a very short period of time, your body will begin to recognize the benefits of the workout. It's not about learning how to fight or jumping 6 feet up in the air and throwing a flying back kick.
I can't do that.
Exactly. I never could either. But again, that's the impression that people have about karate. That's not what it's about. It's about the mind, body, spirit. And I think regardless of whatever age you start, if I had the opportunity, I would have gotten my kids involved at a very young age. I actually had my daughter in class with me at Sensei Labree's dojo. She studied for about a year. And then she started, music lessons in school and other activities, which was fine with me. But to this day, she remembers a lot of the katas and the movements and about a straight punch and
impressive.
about focus. Yeah, it is. And that was a long time ago that she studied.
And that 5-year-old friend of yours is still studying too.
He's still studying.
He's an adult now.
He's an adult. When he first started, he was about this high, and I would tell him, hit me. And of course, he would, hit me, and I would hit him. Sometimes he would hit me, and he would go, ow. Now, when he hits me, believe me, I know he's hitting me. He's taller, he's strong, he's disciplined, he's teaching, as you know. And he's just, he's sort of overcome that sporadic 5 or 6 year old that had trouble focusing. Now, he just graduated from high school. He's going to college.
Crazy.
Yeah, it really is.
We just don't want to tell him that when he hits us that we go out now.
I tell him, I go, do me a favor, don't hit me that hard.
That whole group, I have to remind them sometimes that they're not kids anymore.
Exactly. And they're taller than us now. Well, not that it takes much to be taller than me, but they're taller than I am. And when I work with them, you can just feel the power and the strength. And they're what, 16, 17, 18 years old. And I go, now imagine how they're going to be in another 20 years. They can defend themselves with one blow, which is, what you need if you're ever in a real confrontation and you need it, or walk away.
Thankfully, knowing them as we know them, they'll probably just walk away.
Exactly.
And have in the past had to do
Yes, they have. And I've spoken to this young man about, conflicts that he's had, and I'll ask him, well, what did you do? He says, just let it go. I say, good for you. Then I tell him, come on, let's spar.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, we know kids who have started at 5, and we've known adults that have started in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, and it's beneficial.
And that's why I tell people, well, is it too late for me to start? And I go, no, it's not.
I admit sometimes I spend a little too much time online on martial art forums, and I always laugh to myself because I see that question all the time. Is it too late to start training? Yeah. And it's always a 20-year-old.
Yes.
And I laugh to myself like, dude, just go do it.
Yeah, exactly. And like at, Sensei Labree's dojo, when we first started out, we would get students that were very muscular, well-built. They would lift weights and everything. And they walk into a dojo, and they think they're going to be able to, for lack of a better term, outperform everybody else. And then when they have a young woman come up to them and hit them with punches and kick them and defend any punches that they throw, they're surprised because it's not their muscle that's going to help them in conflict. It's the art of karate. And they realize very quickly that they need to develop a different skill set.
Right. The muscle can complement it.
Well, it can, absolutely. I'm not knocking that, but that's not the wherewithal.
Right. Do you have any favorite karate memories besides what you've already said?
I actually do. At Camp 90, which I forget, it was at one of the colleges in New Hampshire. And a lot of the masters were there. Kanmei Uechi, Master Tamayoshi, Sadnao Uechi. And they would go around to the various groups and teach different skill sets. And I remember Master Tamayoshi would come to our group. And for some reason, he would always pick me to demonstrate the technique. And of course, I was honored. I said, Master Tamayoshi chose me. And it was just amazing how he would be able to apply a technique and show the devastating nature of the technique, but not hurt you. And at the end of Camp 90, we had the banquet where we're all going around shaking the masters' hands and thanking them for everything. And I laugh every time I recall this. Master Tamayoshi, when I went to shake his hand, he says to me, "You look Okinawan." And I said to him, "You look Puerto Rican." And he just burst out laughing. And I think I included this in my bio. What I treasure about that is that two strangers, worlds apart, ages apart, could find common ground in the art of karate. And I have a picture of him and I sitting on a bench at Camp 90. And I have that picture right up on one of my black belt degrees because I treasure that moment. And of course, since he's passed, but he was just such a giving, gentle soul. But the power was within, and you could just see it. So that's one of my favorite all-time memories.
It's beautiful.
It is.
Is there anything you'd like to see evolve in the martial arts?
I would like, I think there's always room to grow in the martial arts. And I think there are certain styles, and I think Uechi is one of them, that is inclusive, as opposed to some schools that I've seen over the years that they just want a certain mindset, or they focus on a particular skill, which is, power and aggression. And I would like to see the martial arts grow to the point where ordinary citizens and students of other physical activities can understand that there's a lot more to a particular martial art, whether it's karate, whether it's BJJ, whatever it might be, that involves more than just developing the body, that the mental growth is immeasurable. And that if you accept that, you're going to come out on the other side as a much better individual.
I can't agree more. Any other closing thoughts?
Just wherever you are, start. Let's do it.
Jose,
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Pleasure's mine.
Thank you.